Picture this. Your mother-in-law slides a legal pad across the dinner table like a performance review. The top is your name, over a 5-day work schedule. Not a request. An assignment. Your husband says nothing. That night he tells you, do it or lose him. I grabbed a pen from the junk drawer and asked where he wanted my signature. If you've ever been the one everyone counts on and nobody asks, subscribe, because this family is about to learn the difference between love and an assignment. I'm Claire, 45, and this is what happened when I stopped being the default answer. Vivian slid the yellow legal pad across the table right as I was reaching for the green beans. Claire, you'll want to give your notice soon. 2 weeks should be plenty. Cross the top in handwriting so tidy it looked typed. She'd written, Claire, weekly schedule. Monday, groceries and pharmacy. Tuesday, laundry and house cleaning. Wednesday, medical appointments. Thursday, meal prep for the freezer. Friday, errands and bills. Notice for what? Your job, obviously, she said, the same tone she'd use on a waiter who forgot the napkins. Nobody at that table made a sound. Marcus studied his plate. Gary took a long pull of his sweet tea. Holly found sudden interest in her mashed potatoes. This hadn't been dreamed up 5 minutes earlier. They'd talked about it. Maybe not everyone. But Marcus had known. You want me to quit my job? Your father-in-law is gone, Claire. I'm alone in this house now. Harold had passed 9 weeks earlier, after a long decline. Quiet man, funny in the way you didn't see coming. I missed him. I know Vivian did too. But grief didn't explain the sheet of paper next to my plate. This is 5 days a week. You wouldn't be here the whole day, she said, like that settled it. Mom just needs help, Marcus said. She's alone now. Somebody has to step up. There it was. Not we need to figure this out. Not what do you think. Somehow everyone at that table already knew exactly who somebody was. I turned to Gary, 53, healthy, 35 minutes away. What about you? I'm traveling 3 days a week. Holly gave a defensive shrug before I'd opened my mouth. I've got the kids, 15 and 18. One of them drove. You know what my schedule's like, Marcus said. I have a schedule too, I said, laughing once, not because anything was funny. Vivian leaned back. Yes, we know you work. She said it the way you'd describe a hobby. I don't just work, Vivian. I run supply chain for an airline. A 9-figure budget. I know what you do. Do you, Marcus? Come on. No, really. Everyone at this table just explained why their time is spoken for, and mine's just sitting here waiting to be handed out. You're taking this personally. You put my name on a schedule. Renata, Gary's wife, kept her eyes down, but I caught the corner of her mouth twitch. Vivian noticed too. This isn't funny. I agree. I lifted the pad. You want me to walk away from a $137,000 job to grocery shop, clean, drive you around, cook, do laundry, and pay your bills. Money isn't everything. I know. That's exactly why this isn't about money. It's about you deciding I hand over my life without asking. That's where dinner really ended. Nobody stood up and declared it. But once 3 grown adults are memorizing their dinner plates and one woman is staring at you like she'd love to revoke your family membership, the pie doesn't matter anymore. Marcus barely said a word until we were halfway home. Then, you embarrassed her. I looked out the window. She embarrassed herself. She lost Dad 9 weeks ago. I know exactly when your father died. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? He gripped the wheel tighter. She's terrified, Claire. She's never lived alone in her life. I understand that. Do you? That got my attention. I turned toward him. Yes. I helped take care of your father for almost a year. I remember exactly what that took. He exhaled through his nose. This is what I mean. Everything becomes a scoreboard with you. It becomes a scoreboard when everyone remembers what I owe and forgets what I already gave. We drove another mile without talking. Then he said something that reframed the entire fight. Before Dad died, I told him Mom would never have to depend on strangers. I stared at his profile. You made him a promise. He was scared for her. That's not what I asked. I told him we'd take care of her. You made a promise with my time. That's not fair. Did you ask me first? Silence. Then it's accurate, I said quietly. By the time we pulled into the driveway, we were both furious. He followed me straight into the kitchen. We can make it work financially. If you cut back. I spun around. How exactly? Walk me through it. He stared at me, jaw working. I started counting on my fingers. My retirement contributions. Our vacation fund. The emergency account. The extra payment we make on the house every month. Your truck note. You always do this. Do what? Turn everything into numbers. You're asking me to walk away from a six-figure career, Marcus. The numbers invited themselves. He paced to the window and back. This is my mother. Yes. She needs us. Yes. Then why is this so hard for you? That one landed harder than he probably intended because after 18 years of marriage, he should already have known the answer. I'm not refusing to help her, I said. I'm refusing to become her full-time unpaid caregiver because everyone else in this family has decided their lives are less flexible than mine. He dragged both hands down his face. And then he said it. Refusing to help her means refusing me too, Claire. I don't know how much clearer that makes it. Kitchen went completely still. Say what you actually mean. He hesitated. He could have stopped right there. God, I wish he had. Instead, anger made him reckless. Take care of my mother or start looking for your own place. For 3 long seconds, neither of us moved. I opened the junk drawer next to the fridge. Rubber bands, a dead flashlight, 2 screwdrivers nobody remembered buying, and pens. I pulled one out. Cheap, black, the kind you steal off a dentist's counter without meaning to. I carried it back to the table, set it down in front of him, and tapped the empty space beside it. Show me exactly where you want my signature. Every trace of anger drained out of his face. Come on, Claire. You gave me the choice. I didn't mean it like... You meant it enough to say it. He looked at me for a long time. Claire. I picked up my purse. I'm sleeping in the guest room. I barely slept. Not because I was fantasizing about some glamorous new solo life. I wasn't. I was 45, 18 years into a marriage I genuinely believed was solid, lying in a room where we normally stored Christmas wrapping paper and off-season coats. I still loved him. That was the miserable part. At 7:15 the next morning, sitting in my car with coffee going cold, I searched Divorce Attorney Charlotte, North Carolina, stared at the first result for almost a full minute and called. Patricia Long's office called back at 8:50. By then I was at my desk, pretending to care about a fuel contract renewal. We had a cancellation open up at 1:15, the woman said. I almost said no. That surprised me. Less than 12 hours earlier I'd handed my husband a pen. Now that an actual lawyer was offering me an actual chair, my nerves suddenly wanted to reschedule. I'll take it, I said anyway, then hung up and stared at the same paragraph on my screen for 5 straight minutes without reading a word of it. A knock came at my open door. Denise Alvarez leaned in. You've been glaring at that monitor. Should I call an ambulance or a priest? Denise and I had worked together 9 years, 54, divorced once, remarried once, 0 patience for drama. Shut the door, I said. Her smile disappeared. I told her everything, the legal pad, Harold's promise, the ultimatum, the pen. When I finished, she sat quietly a moment. Do you want a divorce? I thought you'd tell me he's an idiot. He is. That wasn't my question. I don't know. Okay. That's the whole answer then. She shrugged. I'm in supply chain, Claire, not wisdom. That got a laugh out of me. Then she leaned in. Do you want the marriage over, or do you want Marcus to understand what he was willing to trade to keep his mother happy? Honestly, I don't know. Then don't pretend you do. Stick with me here because this is the part where things actually start to turn, and this family has no idea what's about to hit them once Claire is out of the house. Patricia Long's office sat on the 4th floor of a converted brick building near uptown Charlotte. No dramatic desk, no shark in an expensive suit. She was somewhere in her 50s, reading glasses on a chain, with the unhurried calm of a woman who'd heard every version of, "My spouse has lost his mind." She listened without interrupting, then asked about our finances. 15 years married, house owned jointly, retirement accounts on both sides, my income higher than his, no major debt beyond the mortgage. I want to say something before you decide anything, she said, over her glasses. Divorce isn't a button you press to teach your husband a lesson. People come in here angry and start moving money, closing cards, changing passwords. Don't. I wasn't planning to. Excellent. Keep not planning to. I liked her instantly. She walked me through equitable distribution, the retirement split, what a temporary separation could look like while I figured out what I actually wanted. None of it sounded satisfying. It sounded expensive, complicated, and sad, which in its own strange way was reassuring. She wasn't selling me a fantasy where I walked out by Friday with the house and his truck. Gather your financial records. Know exactly what you have. Don't decide anything from anger. What if I'm not sure I even want to file? Then don't file today. She smiled slightly. My job isn't to get you divorced. It's to protect you if that's what you decide. I left with a folder under my arm and a much heavier understanding of what I'd started. Vivian called at 2:06. I almost let it go. Marcus says you're overreacting. Hello to you too. Marcus has spent the day explaining me to people, I said. I don't appreciate the sarcasm. I don't appreciate being assigned a career change over pot roast. Tell me what you're actually asking for. I already told you. Tell me again, plainly. A pause. I need someone for my appointments. Groceries. The stairs are hard with laundry. Meals. Prescriptions. Bills. Harold handled the cleaning, so cleaning too. Errands. Someone has to track it all. You just described a full-time job. Family doesn't invoice family. Family usually asks. Silence, then her voice sharpened. I don't know what's happened to you. There it was, I'd said no, and apparently that was rare enough to be diagnosed as a personality change. You're really choosing that job over your family? No, Vivian. I'm choosing not to let my family choose for me. I ended the call before she could answer. That evening, Marcus and I ate at opposite ends of the kitchen table. I tried once more. I'll help her. I'm not abandoning your mother. But the three of you split the regular load, anything left over we hire out. She doesn't want strangers in her house. Then she can decide which matters more. That's a conversation for you, Gary, Holly, and your mother. Not me. And you. I'll participate. I won't run it. She's my mother, he said, rubbing his forehead. That's the part you keep saying like it explains why I'm responsible for her. Neither of us said much after that. The next afternoon I went back and signed the engagement agreement. I hadn't filed anything, but I'd hired a lawyer. When I got home and set the folder on the counter, Marcus's whole face changed. You actually went to a lawyer. You actually gave me an ultimatum. I was angry. So was I. You're trying to scare me. That nearly made me laugh. No, Marcus. I think that's what you were trying to do to me. For once, he had no comeback. I went upstairs and started looking at furnished apartments, Beige walls, beige carpet, a beige couch chosen specifically to prevent anyone from feeling anything in it. I signed a 3-month lease. He stood in the bedroom doorway while I packed 2 suitcases. Is this really necessary? I don't know. It's the only honest answer I've got. I wasn't leaving because my lawyer told me to. She'd been careful never to tell me what to do. I needed space where every conversation didn't circle back to Vivian or divorce or both. When are you coming back? I don't know that either. That landed. I could tell it hurt him. I could tell it hurt me too. My first night in the apartment, unpacking groceries I'd bought for one person, I found a box of the rosemary crackers Marcus liked, sitting between my soup and my coffee. I stared at it. Then I laughed. Then, embarrassingly, I cried, sitting at that beige counter, coat still on, because apparently 18 years of marriage can hide inside a $6 box of crackers. I missed him. I was still furious with him. Both of those turned out to fit in the same room just fine. The first crack showed up Tuesday. Gary called me at work. Do you know anything about Mom's homeowner's insurance? There's a renewal notice. It wants documentation on a roof repair. Then they need documentation on the roof repair. Very helpful. What am I even looking for? Probably in her filing cabinet. Call the agent, the number's on the notice. That should have ended it. It didn't. The insurer wanted records from an earlier repair Gary couldn't find. The roofing company had changed hands. By Wednesday afternoon, he'd left work early to meet a contractor, calling me from his mother's driveway. Okay, seriously, how did you manage all this without anyone noticing? Mostly by nobody noticing, I said. Fair, he said, quieter. First time anyone in that family had admitted it out loud. Holly lasted one more day. Did you know Mom has a cardiology follow-up? She asked Thursday morning. I don't have it memorized anymore. You always know. I used to. Did she miss it? She's fine, they rebooked it. Then the real reason for the call. Could you keep managing her schedule just until we get organized? No. You already know how it all works. Then now's your chance to learn too. Her voice cooled. Fine. Send me what you have. We hung up. I felt awful. Nobody warns you how often doing the reasonable thing makes you feel unreasonable. That night, my phone rang at 11:40. Vivian, no hello. My thermostat says 64. I had it set to 71. Gary's asleep, apparently, and Holly doesn't know a thing about furnaces. Neither did I, beyond changing a filter. But she expected me to fix it because I usually had. For one dangerous second, I pictured the whole drive over. Instead, I said, call the service line, it's taped inside the furnace closet. I'm not coming over. Dead silence. All right, she finally said. The house didn't freeze. Marcus got a technician out the next morning. The world kept turning without me driving across the county in my pajamas. If you think this is where things finally settle down, stay with me because 5 days later Vivian ends up in urgent care and everything this family thinks they've figured out gets tested for real. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Vivian's next-door neighbor, Frank Doss, called me the following Thursday. Claire? I don't want to alarm anyone, but your mother-in-law hasn't picked up her mail in 2 days, and her porch light's been on since Tuesday morning. I called Holly immediately. Within the hour, she was letting herself in with her spare key. Vivian on the kitchen floor, having missed the last step carrying a laundry basket, hip bruised badly enough for an ER visit. She's okay, Holly said the second I picked up. Nothing broken. I was already in the car. Vivian looked small on that exam table in a paper gown, irritated and underneath it, embarrassed. I hugged her. She let me, which told me more than anything she could have said. Later, while Holly went for discharge paperwork, Vivian said, "This wouldn't have happened if someone had been there." I knew what she wanted me to say. I pulled my chair closer instead. Then we need a plan that doesn't depend on one person being there all the time. Her mouth tightened. She didn't argue. Not yet. That evening, Gary sent a group text, Friday 6:30 Mom's house. Everybody comes. We're finishing this. I understood Friday wasn't going to be about who bought the groceries anymore. It was going to be about who this family actually believed was supposed to disappear into someone else's life while everyone else kept living theirs. By 9 a.m. Friday, Vivian had already called 4 times. I was in a meeting when my phone buzzed against the table. By the time it ended, I had 7 missed calls, 3 from Vivian, 2 from Marcus, 1 each from Holly and Gary, and 3 voicemails, the last one just, "Claire, please answer." Around noon, one more came in, her voice tired in a way I hadn't heard in years. "I could really use some help right now." A week earlier, she'd been informing me what I'd be doing with the rest of my working life. Now she was asking. I didn't enjoy that as much as you'd think. Mostly I felt sad it had taken a lawyer, an apartment, a missed appointment, a furnace scare, and a bruised hip to get her from "you will" to "I need." I texted back, "I'll be there at 6:30. We'll talk then." 6:25, I pulled into Vivian's driveway. Marcus's truck was already there, along with Gary's SUV and Holly's minivan. Renata had come too. Vivian sat in her recliner with an ice pack beside her, walking fine but making sure everyone knew the doctor had told her to take it easy. Gary started before I'd even taken off my coat. "We need an actual plan." "We had a plan," Vivian said. "Mom, Claire isn't quitting her job." "I understand that now." The word "now" did a lot of work in that sentence. Holly floated assisted living. Vivian shut it down instantly. 71 wasn't 101, and the house wasn't for sale. Marcus suggested a companion a few mornings a week. "I don't need a stranger in my house." Gary reminded her she'd fallen. "I slipped," she said, "carrying laundry down those stairs since before any of you were born." Renata murmured. Apparently the stairs finally filed a complaint, and Gary shot her a look. They tried rotating the week among the 3 siblings. It sounded reasonable for about 4 minutes, until Gary's travel schedule collided with Holly's school drop-offs collided with Marcus's job sites, and Vivian rejected grocery delivery, ride shares, and anyone touching her bedroom in the same breath. Within 15 minutes, everyone was explaining why their own life couldn't bend an inch. Finally, Gary threw up his hands. "Somebody explain to me why this landed on Claire, of all people. Vivian isn't even her mother. She married into this family the same as the rest of us," Vivian said. "And so did I, Gary," Renata said, quietly enough that it took a second to register. Every head turned toward her. She took a slow sip of coffee. "Strange how nobody's ever tried scheduling my week for me." "That's an entirely different situation. You barely work." "Oh, I know precisely what you're implying." Renata's smile didn't reach anywhere near her eyes. "Years ago I figured out the trick in this family. Say yes to something once and it becomes yours forever. So I stopped saying yes." That silenced the room. Holly set down her pen. "She's right," she said quietly. "I let Claire handle things because she was good at it. If she said she'd take care of something, I stopped thinking about it. And yeah, it was convenient." She looked at me. "Thank you," I said. Then Marcus spoke. "I did worse than that." Vivian started to stop him. He didn't let her. "I couldn't stand the idea of you being upset with me," he said to his mother. Then to me. "So instead I let Claire absorb it. It was always going to hurt someone, I just made sure it wasn't going to be you. There are apologies that sound polished and mean nothing. That wasn't one. It was awkward, specific, and true, which is probably why I believed it. If that confession hit you the way it hit that living room, smash that like button, because this family still isn't finished falling apart before they figure out how to fix it." I pulled out the folder I'd already prepared. Transportation for appointments, grocery and prescription delivery, weekly housekeeping, a few mornings of companion care, an emergency response pendant. I handed copies to Marcus, Gary, and Holly. Not Vivian, not to cut her out, but because I wasn't volunteering to be the one managing the plan. I don't want strangers coming and going, she said. Then don't hire all of them. Then why is everyone trying to get rid of me? That stopped the room. Mom, nobody's getting rid of you, Holly said. That's what it feels like. Something under the anger in Vivian's voice finally showed. She looked around her own living room. Your father did things I didn't even know he was doing. I found a bill last week and couldn't tell if it had been paid. The porch light burned out and I stood there wondering who I was even supposed to call. She looked at me. Somehow you never had that problem. Nothing ever seemed to catch you off guard. And there it was. Not because I was the daughter-in-law, because I'd made competence look effortless for so long that everyone forgot it cost something. You could have just asked me for help, I said. Asking never crossed my mind. I just put your name where I needed it. She had nothing to say to that. We didn't solve everything. Gary took the house and insurance. Holly took medical scheduling. Marcus took groceries and transportation while they interviewed a companion service. Vivian objected to nearly every detail, but she didn't put my name back on anything. Marcus followed me to my car. I'm sorry. I was scared after Dad died. I felt like I'd made him a promise, and then everything started falling apart. I know. But that explains what you did, Marcus. It doesn't make it okay. Don't file. Please. What do I have to do to get you home? That question told me he still didn't understand. Coming home isn't the test. It's whether anything actually changes when I'm not there to make it easy. I drove back to the apartment. For the first time since that Sunday dinner, I wasn't waiting to hear what he'd say next. I wanted to see what he'd do. Vivian lasted exactly 2 visits with Sandra Kessler before declaring the whole arrangement unworkable. Sandra was 64, a retired elementary school secretary with short silver hair, sensible shoes, and the unshakable calm of someone who'd spent 30 years managing children, parents, and school boards simultaneously. I liked her immediately. Vivian did not. She puts the groceries away wrong, Holly told me over the phone. I was in my apartment kitchen scrambling eggs. Canned tomatoes have a designated shelf, apparently. And she folds the bath towels in thirds. The woman's a menace, I said, and Holly actually laughed, new for us lately. Her voice shifted. Mom wants to know if you can come Thursday. She says Sandra doesn't cook the way you do. I already told her no, Holly said before I could answer. I told her if Sandra's not a good fit, we'll find someone else. We're not replacing Sandra with you. Thank you, I said. Don't make a thing of it. You were getting close. Maybe I was. The point was never that Vivian suddenly loved the new setup. She fought it constantly, refused to trust the emergency pendant because anything with one button probably has 14 ways to fail. But the rest of the family had mostly stopped treating every complaint as a 5-alarm fire only I could put out. Marcus called one Tuesday morning while I was putting on mascara. Any chance you can take Mom to her appointment at 10? Compressor problem at a job site. Did you call Gary? Holly? The transportation service? No, he admitted. I just figured you'd be the easiest. He heard it the second it left his mouth. Neither of us said anything. The old habit, alive and well. Yeah, he sighed. That sounded bad. It sounded honest. He called Gary, no luck. Holly, same. So he called his own boss, rearranged his morning, and drove her himself. 12:46 I got a text. Took care of it. My bad. I stared at those 3 words longer than they probably deserved. He hadn't earned a medal for driving his own mother to an appointment. But he'd caught himself mid-habit. That mattered more than it should have. Separation wasn't getting easier just because the family was improving, though. The apartment cost more than I liked. Trish's invoices kept coming. We were running 2 households, and every time I bought laundry detergent I thought we already own laundry detergent. I missed the house. I missed him making coffee too strong. Maybe Denise had been right. Maybe I didn't want a divorce. Maybe I wanted my husband back. What if I'm just being stubborn? I asked her at lunch one day. She wiped her hands on a napkin. Don't stay just because 18 years is a long time. And don't leave just because one night was terrible. She pointed her fork at me. Look at what he does after the terrible night. Annoyingly sensible. So I did. Marcus started seeing a counselor on his own, never made a production of it, just mentioned one evening that he'd gone. He started handling more of Vivian's stuff himself, sometimes catching himself mid-call. Never mind. I can figure it out. He wasn't transformed. He was learning. There's a difference. About 7 weeks after I moved out, we gathered for Gary's birthday dinner at a little Italian place he liked in Matthews. I almost didn't go. Vivian had been cool toward me for weeks, but Gary had asked specifically, so I went. Dinner was pleasant for the first hour. Then Holly mentioned Sandra had taken Vivian grocery shopping that morning. She bought low-sodium soup, Vivian said, setting down her fork. You could have told her which one you wanted. I shouldn't have to explain every small thing in my own life. Then buy the soup yourself, Mom, Gary said. I would if everyone hadn't decided I'm suddenly incompetent. Nobody answered. Vivian's eyes swept the table and landed on me. There was a time when a wife didn't need a written invitation to help her own husband's family. I set my glass down ready to answer, but Marcus spoke first. That's enough, Mom. Stop right there. Vivian blinked, caught off guard more by the steadiness in his voice than the words. Even the waitress passing behind us slowed and detoured. I wasn't speaking to you. You were speaking about my wife, which makes it mine to answer. Claire never once turned her back on you. Kept his voice level. The three of us handed her our responsibilities because she was the one who never said no. And out of everyone, I did the most damage. I came close to losing my marriage because I couldn't bring myself to disappoint you. You're my mother, and taking care of that relationship is on me, not Claire. What she gives, she chooses. Nobody in this family gets to hand that decision to her. Vivian shoved her chair back. Wonderful. Now I'm the villain at my own son's birthday dinner. Nobody called you that. You didn't have to. She picked up her purse and walked out. Nobody chased her right away. That mattered too. An hour later, driving back to my apartment, my phone rang. Vivian. I answered. Silence then. I shouldn't have told you to quit your job. I nearly missed my turn. No. You shouldn't have. I got used to you handling things. I know. And I shouldn't have let Marcus talk to you that way. I smiled despite myself. Vivian, he's 49. You can stop taking responsibility for him anytime. A single, unexpected laugh. Well, apparently we're all learning. It wasn't a perfect apology. Vivian was never built for those, but it was the first one she'd ever given me. A few days later, Marcus asked me to dinner. Near the end, would you come to counseling with me? I studied him. I will. I'm not saying I'm coming home. I know. I waited for the argument, the persuading, the but. It never came. He just nodded again. Strangely, that gave me more hope than anything he'd said since the night he told me to choose. We spent almost 4 months in counseling before I moved back. 4 months, not 4 sessions, because people love to tell you a marriage can be repaired by one sincere apology and a decent dinner. It can't. Our counselor, Dr. Renwick, had an irritating talent for asking questions that sounded simple until you tried to answer them. One night she asked Marcus, "When Claire says no, what do you hear?" That she's angry with me. That I did something wrong. That I need to convince her. She turned to me. And when Marcus is disappointed? That I should fix it. Neither of us looked proud of our answers. We'd spent years building that system together. He pushed because pushing usually worked. I gave in because giving in ended the argument faster. Vivian hadn't invented the problem. She'd just pushed it far enough that I could finally see it. When I moved home, I didn't hand him a list of new rules. I'd had enough of lists for one marriage. Mostly, I watched what happened when something went wrong. That told me more than any promise could. He still slipped occasionally. One evening mid-dinner, Vivian called. I heard only his side. Thursday. Hang on. He covered the phone. Do you remember what time Mom's cardiology thing is? Then he caught himself, looked at me, and uncovered the phone. Never mind, Mom. I'll check the calendar myself. You enjoyed that a little, he said after. I did. I'll stop eventually. Let's not set unrealistic goals, he said and laughed. Those small moments meant more to me by then than any of the big ones. Meanwhile, Vivian and Sandra had settled into a cold war fought entirely through household organization. Vivian objected to how Sandra loaded the dishwasher, and Sandra told her she'd just found herself a wonderful reason to stay on her feet. 2 weeks later, I stopped by and found them at the kitchen table playing gin rummy, Vivian accusing her of cheating with a deeply suspicious expression, Sandra not even looking up. If I were going to cheat, I'd pick something more profitable than gin rummy. Vivian never really learned to like needing help. But needing help and being helpless turned out to be two different things, and she was slowly starting to understand that. So were the rest of us. By November, the whole arrangement had become almost ordinary. Gary handled repairs and insurance. Holly managed medical scheduling. Marcus did most of the transportation and groceries. Sandra came 3 mornings a week. And I helped sometimes. That was the whole point. Sometimes. A week before Thanksgiving, Vivian called me. I wanted to ask you something. I waited. Would you bring those sweet potatoes you make? I smiled, not because of the sweet potatoes. Because of 2 words, would you? Sure. And don't put marshmallows on them. I never put marshmallows on them. I know. I'm reminding you. There was Vivian. Still very much herself. Thanksgiving was at her house. Gary manned the turkey like a surgeon, announcing its internal temperature roughly every 20 minutes. Holly brought 2 pies. Renata arrived with a bottle of wine and spent the first 40 minutes in the living room talking to Sandra before lifting a single finger to help. A year earlier, I might have judged her for it. That day, I thought she might be the smartest woman in the state of North Carolina. After dinner, Marcus and Gary cleared the table. Holly packed leftovers for Vivian. I started to stand out of habit. Marcus pointed at my coffee cup. Sit. I raised an eyebrow. He corrected himself instantly with a straight face. Would you please continue enjoying your coffee while your extremely capable husband handles the dishes far better than you ever could? I sat back down. Nobody looked at me strangely. Nobody asked why I wasn't helping. Nobody handed me a list. That's when I finally understood something I'd been too angry to see that first night at the dinner table. My salary had never really been the point. I made $137,000 a year, and I'd worked hard for every cent of it, but if I'd made $40,000, Vivian still wouldn't have had the right to decide for me. If I'd worked part-time, she still should have asked. My time didn't become mine only once it crossed a certain hourly rate. A few nights after Thanksgiving, Marcus was digging through the kitchen junk drawer. What are you looking for? Batteries. Back left. He moved some takeout menus, a roll of tape, 3 pens. Then he stopped and picked up a cheap black one. Is this it? I knew exactly what he meant. Yep. He turned it over between 2 fingers, frowning at it like it had personally wronged him. This ugly thing? Why do we still even have this? I took it back from him and held it up to the light. Because it's the most useful piece of plastic in this house. Don't ask it to apologize for existing. He squinted at the tiny print on the barrel. Ridgeline Family Dental. You stole a dentist's pen. I did what the moment required. That got a real laugh out of him. Then he sobered. I keep thinking about what almost happened over that stupid pen. I'm sorry it ever got that far. There are moments when someone apologizes and you feel obligated to say it's okay. I didn't because it hadn't been. Instead, I reached across the counter and squeezed his hand. He understood. That was enough. I still help Vivian. I still remind Marcus of things sometimes. I still pick up Holly's kids when she's stuck at work, and I brought soup to Gary when he had the flu. I didn't turn into a woman who stopped doing things for people. I still like being dependable. What I stopped doing was confusing dependable with permanently available. Help is supposed to be something you give. The moment people start believing they're owed it, it stops feeling much like love. Vivian had been grieving. Marcus had been terrified. Gary and Holly had been overwhelmed. All of that was real. And my life was still mine to decide about. I didn't need to burn anything down to prove that. I didn't need Vivian humiliated or Marcus punished. I needed them to understand that loving me didn't give them authority over me. And maybe more than anything, I needed to understand that myself. That night in our kitchen, Marcus thought he was handing me an ultimatum: take care of his mother or find somewhere else to live. He expected me to choose the marriage. What he hadn't counted on was that after years of making myself the easiest person in the family to lean on, I'd finally hit a line I couldn't negotiate away. I wasn't willing to disappear just to keep everyone else comfortable. If you've ever had to teach the people you love that your kindness isn't an obligation, you probably already understand exactly why I still keep that ridiculous stolen pen in my kitchen drawer. And if any part of this story felt a little too familiar, tell me in the comments what you would have done differently. Would you have signed the paper or torn it up in front of everyone at that table? If you want more stories like this one, subscribe to Silent Revenge and share this with the one friend who's always the somebody in their own family. See you in the next one.